Joining us right now is Pennsylvania Congressman Fred Keller. He is a member of the Oversight and Reform Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for being here this morning. We've had your colleague James Comer on a number of times. He's been investigating this for some time now. What specifically will this resolution vote do?
Well, what we want to do is we want to make sure that the president doesn't have anything that would prevent him from making the decision in the best interest of the American people. I mean, you look at what he did in changing the rules for the Treasury for the suspicious activity reports, okay? Why do you change that? If there's nothing there, then that should be open and we should be able to see that. And it's our job as oversight to make sure that the American people are put first, and that's for whom we work, and we want to make sure that the administration has their best interest at heart when they're making decisions.
And just to be clear, the suspicious money reports that you're referring to, this would shine a spotlight on whether or not Hunter Biden's bank accounts were showing big deposits from perhaps Chinese officials.
It would show where the money might have come from if it did. But let's really take a look at this and shine a light of transparency on the activities of Hunter Biden. I mean, it's been a lot of reports about what happened, and I think that we owe it to the American people to get to the bottom of that. And I think the president, caring about his son, would want to put this to bed too.
Well, we're going to speak with Senator Ron Johnson coming up, and he has reported from his Senate investigation that the Biden family has taken in tens of millions of dollars from Chinese officials. Is that the reason that this administration canceled the China initiative? The China initiative was an initiative that was investigating intellectual property theft by Chinese companies. It was costing American businesses hundreds of billions of dollars. Do you think that he's canceling things like the China initiative, being soft on tariffs, because he's compromised?
I would, hate to say why he's doing it. Certainly, if he's talking about running again, as they mentioned in the clip that you have there, certainly wouldn't want to have this story come out. But, I don't know why he's being soft on China or any other nation. I mean, what we need to do is we need a president that's going to put America first, and we should know that's going to happen. And this would be a lot of sunlight on an issue that the American people deserve answers to.
Well, he's also sold oil, strategic oil, to China. The administration is extending its plans to sell oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and now planning to sell up to 10 million barrels of crude oil in November, as heating and electric bills are surging right now as the higher and the more demand comes from the wintertime, Congressman. Why are we selling oil from the Strategic Oil Reserve now, and are we getting to dangerously low levels in the Strategic Oil Reserve? And I guess the question again becomes, why sell it to China?
Well, first, why sell it at all? But then why sell it to an adversarial nation? And when you're spot on when you say about how low the reserve is. And this is not what it was designed for, is bad political decisions. What the Biden administration and Democrats need to start doing is embracing American technology in producing energy. And we had a committee hearing last week where they were trying to paint how bad American energy companies are. But it's okay to sell oil to China and other countries, or it's okay to go and beg Saudi Arabia and Venezuela to pump more oil. If they really cared about America first and Americans, they'd stand up for us and make sure that we weren't seeing the inflation we're seeing because of the high cost of energy. And to somehow now try and sell this, and they're doing it through November. I have to wonder what happens in November that they want to do it through November. Well, I tell you what happens in November. They're concerned about their disastrous policies and how they're going to perform, and they're trying to mitigate the repercussions, at least until after the election, of their decisions. And all of a sudden now we're supposed to celebrate the gas is now only about $1.50 more than it was when he took office, but it was all the way up at $5 a gallon, and it's because of their policies. And until we get to the bottom of these issues, we're not gonna force them to do what's right until they know there's some spotlight on it.
Well, I don't understand any of these policies to get the Strategic Oil Reserve to such low levels. It's supposed to be for a crisis situation. And then there's the border. We've been talking about the wide open border. Customs and Border Patrol released the August numbers. Fentanyl seizures were up 6% in the month of August. Agents taking in more than 200,000 total pounds of of the deadly drug in a single month, Congressman, and we know that it was 200,000 people apprehended and arrested at the open border in the month of August. What is the motivation to keep this border wide open when it's got these illicit narcotics coming in, illegal migrants coming in? Already, I believe it's up to 81 people who were identified on the terrorist watch list came in through the southern border.
Well, first, I'd like to say thank you to Governors Abbott and DeSantis for making sure that the Democrats understand what an issue this is when you have an uncontrolled border and people coming across it and having to deal with these issues, sending them to the vice president's house right after she says, hey, look, the border's secure. And the reason we need to make this point is because Americans are dying with fentanyl overdoses. That's now the #1 cause for overdoses. And it's happening to people all across our nation. So every town is a border town when you have this drug problem coming in here. And it's time we stop the trafficking of human beings and the drugs coming across our border by securing that border. And we need to force them to do it. And the only way to do it is bring the problem right to their affluent neighborhoods and make sure that they deal with it. You look at the migrants or the illegal aliens, and that's what they are, illegal aliens, because their first act in coming to our country is breaking our law. The illegal aliens this year is a record of over 2 million. That's more than about the population of 12 single states. 12 individual states don't have a population of 2 million people. And if you add what's happened in the last 2 years, you're up to about 22 states. It's time we take serious control of our border. We met with people when I was at the border that have ranched for 100 years along the border. And you know what they said in New Mexico? They said, we can't go on our property without carrying a firearm in the United States of America. This really needs attention by the president and the vice president. And the only way to do it is to try and get their allies to realize it's an issue, so they put pressure on them, because they're certainly not listening to the governors of the border states or Governor DeSantis in Florida.
No, we went to the border as well several times, and ranchers told me the same thing, that they won't even throw the trash out without carrying their pistol. And they showed me their property, and it was all trashed, fences broken in. It was really a sad situation. Congressman, thanks very much for being here this morning. We'll keep watching all of that. Fred Keller joining us this morning in Washington.